Hello, good afternoon and welcome to a rather warm and sweaty Brisbane, capital of Queensland, Australia. The third largest city in the nation, behind that of Sydney and Melbourne. Anyway, right behind me you'll see the sprawling, beautiful Roma Street Parklands, which is a beautiful green subtropical lush urban oasis in the heart of downtown Brisbane. Conveniently adjacent to Roma Street Parklands, you'll also find the aptly named Roma Street Railway Station, which happens to be one of the busiest railway stations in the whole of Queensland. Roma Street Railway Station is a primary gateway for regional and long distance trains here in Queensland. You get the Spirit of Queensland, for example, all the way up to Cairns. You also get the New South Wales train link all the way down to Sydney. Fortunately, we were supposed to be travelling down to Brisbane on the Spirit of Queensland. It would have been an epic 25-hour journey only the other day, but unfortunately due to a recent cyclone, quite a lot of flooding in North Queensland cut off part of the track through to Mackay. So yeah, the only option was to do a coach to Mackay and then the rest of the train down to Brisbane. Really didn't think it was worth it, so just got a refund instead, and hopefully we'll do that at a later date. Also right behind me, quite conveniently, is the Brisbane Coach Terminal, which is the main coach terminal here in Brisbane. Very convenient, because we're actually going to be travelling down to a very popular tourist town in northern New South Wales today. That is, of course, beautiful Byron Bay. Really excited to be travelling at Byron Bay for the first time in about 10 years or so now. Beautiful part of northern New South Wales with some absolutely stunning beaches. It's also home to the nearby Cape Byron, which is the easterly most point on mainland Australia. Also excitingly today, to get there, we're going to be travelling on FlixBus, which is one of the largest bus companies in the world. We have a huge presence, especially in Europe and North America, but also increasingly elsewhere around the world. In fact, they only actually started services in Australia about 6 or so weeks ago now. They pretty well just serve a few trunk lines between Cairns and Brisbane, Brisbane and Sydney, and also Sydney and Melbourne. So yeah, really looking forward to today's journey. Talk more about FlixBus and its whole worldwide operations a little bit later on as we get on board. But for now, let's walk down the stairs and make ourselves known at the coach terminal. Hopefully it should be a really fun experience today. One of the first on YouTube as well. So let's do it. As I alluded to before, Brisbane Roma Street Railway Station is one of the busiest in the whole of Queensland. In fact, it is the main hub for long distance passenger train services, along with long distance coach services as well. It is the junction station for the North Coast Main Line, Gold Coast and New South Wales North Coast Line. Located approximately 750 kilometres from Brisbane Central Railway Station, services are a total of 10 platforms and 10 tracks. According to the latest statistics I could find, it services nearly 2 million yearly annual passengers and a total of 12 different train routes. Most notably, Queensland Rail's long distance services such as the Spirit of Queensland to Cairns, the Spirit of Outback to Longreach, the Tilt train to Bundaberg and Rockhampton, the Westlander all the way out to Charleville, and also not to forget New South Wales train link service down to Sydney. There's also numerous suburban services that pass through Roma Street as well. Also the airport link out to Brisbane Airport. As you can see now, adjacent to the railway station is Brisbane Coach Terminal, which services a wide range of long distance bus services all the way through New South Wales and Queensland. By many well-known operators such as Greyhound Australia, Murray's, New South Wales Train Link, and more recently FlixBus as well, as we're travelling today. There is some really extremely long haul bus services from here, such as Townsville, and even the longest bus service out of Brisbane all the way up to Cairns, which approaches 28 to 30 hours on both Greyhound and FlixBus. Another notable route is Mount Isa in northwest Queensland, about 26 hours and 50 minutes. Luckily today we won't be enduring anywhere near that sort of length of journey. We're going to be going down to Byron Bay with FlixBus, journey time of about 3 hours flat, via Surfers Paradise on the heart of the Gold Coast, and a little bit later on Coolangatta Airport, which services Gold Coast. That being said, today's journey is indeed actually a very long one. Actually continues all the way down to Sydney, capital of New South Wales. A very grueling 16 hours and 5 minutes. The fairly new Brisbane Coach Terminal, which replaced the Brisbane Transit Centre back in 2019, is a fairly modern facility catering to a large amount of bus departures. That being said, I'm not a huge fan of its design because it's fairly limited in terms of amenities. It really only has a bathroom block plus a few booking offices for the main coach companies present. There is also live departure boards as well. Perhaps the biggest thing I'm not a fan of is its open air design, however, which is not ideal in a place like Brisbane, which does get quite hot and humid and quite wet and stormy, particularly in the summer as we're travelling today. Anyway, onto our FlixBus service, which you can see arriving about half an hour behind schedule. There's already a few things about today's journey, which I'm not a huge fan of. Talk about those later, but for now, let's just head on board. After stowing my included luggage allowance, which is up to 2 pieces, up to 20 kilos. Now as we board today's coach service, if it hasn't already become apparent, the first issue is that we're actually not on a dedicated FlixBus, which is certainly not hard to miss due to their striking green livery. We're indeed on a contracted bus service, which is pretty disappointing, as the onboard experience, as you'll quickly notice, is far inferior to a Flix owned bus themselves. On this particular bus, I've got black leather seating with a footrest as well, reasonable reclines, individual air vents and light above me, but the worst feature is no fold-back tray table and very limited legroom, some of the worst I've ever seen on a coach. Flix owned buses themselves advertise great reclining seats with spacious legroom, free onboard Wi-Fi and also charging outlets. Problem is, this bus has none of that. If you're just going down the road 1 hour to the Gold Coast or down to Byron Bay 3 hours as we're doing today, it's probably not a big deal. But the problem is, this bus is actually going all the way to Sydney, a 16-hour journey. And if I happen to be one of those passengers, I'd be instantly regretting my decision. Being on plenty of Murray's and Greyhound services over the years, and their onboard coach experience is far superior than this particular individual coach experience I'm having today. Now don't get me wrong, I'm pretty sure the bright green modern Flix owned buses themselves would offer a far more competitive and comfortable onboard experience to that of main competitors such as Greyhound and Murray's. But for now, that's going to be a remaining problem with travelling on Flix. You can never be 100% certain that you won't end up on a contract bus with far inferior onboard facilities. The out-contracting of services is a similar issue that Intercity have in New Zealand as well. As I was travelling FlixBus in just the first few weeks of operation, happy to give them a bit of a benefit of the doubt. They just had some restraints with their coach capacity, so hopefully in coming months they'll fully be able to operate a Flix owned bus network, which would be very much beneficial for them, as customers will know exactly what to expect with their onboard experience. As we now hit the motorway heading south towards the Gold Coast and eventually Byron Bay, one thing I can't really forgive, however, was today's late arriving bus. Not entirely because it was running late itself, delays sometimes happen, that is understandable in the right circumstances. What I could not forgive, however, was the absolutely no lack of communication, nor the live bus tracking feature appearing to work on their website. Everyone was basically waiting around at the coach terminal for around about an hour for the bus to arrive with no updates whatsoever, whether its arrival was imminent or hours away. No staff on hand to advise of an estimated time of arrival, no updates on the departure board either. Really hate these sort of delays. If I knew it was going to be an hour or two delay, at least I can do other things in the meantime. But just waiting around endlessly, not knowing where it's going to leave in 5 minutes or 5 hours is something that really annoys me. Flix, hopefully you can do better in the future. Anyway, without further ado, what better time now to sit back, relax and enjoy our journey south towards Gold Coast and eventually Byron Bay today, where we're going to encounter a lot of extra traffic, making it a very slow journey. Once we get a little bit closer to Byron Bay, I'll then wrap up my final thoughts and verdict about today's FlixBus experience. But for now, enjoy the ride, which becomes particularly scenic once we hit the lush green Northern Rivers region of New South Wales. just like that, after what turned out to be a very slow journey today with plenty of bumper to bumper traffic between Brisbane and the Gold Coast, we finally made it to beautiful Byron Bay, one of the most popular beach resort towns in the whole of Australia. Perhaps the most popular backpacker town in the whole country as well. Byron Bay you'll find located approximately 164 kilometres south of the Brisbane capital, or about an hour south of the Gold Coast. So overall, what were my final thoughts about my first ever FlixBus experience? Well, long story short, it wasn't great. But as always, let's start at the beginning of today's journey. So today's journey began at the Brisbane Coach Terminal, located at Roma Street Railway Station. The coach terminal itself, while modern, don't really appreciate its open air outdoor design. Really doesn't have much in terms of amenities either. So yeah, I've certainly seen far better coach terminals in Australia. So it wasn't off to a great start here. We were then left waiting for well over half an hour, waiting for our bus to arrive with absolutely no updates from FlixBus whatsoever about our late arriving bus. No staff at the station to advise us either, no updates on the live tracker boards either. The FlixBus live tracking app didn't seem to work either, which was pretty useless. Delays are one thing, but when they're properly mitigated through good communication, at least you can do other things in the meantime. But waiting around endlessly for a bus you don't know whether it's going to come in 5 minutes or 5 hours is very frustrating indeed. Once our bus arrived, not too surprisingly, wasn't actually a FlixBus. It was a contract bus which offered a far inferior experience than what is advertised with Flix own buses themselves. Probably okay if you're just travelling to Byron Bay, but to be honest, it's one of the least comfortable coaches I've ever travelled on. And if I was travelling this coach all the way to Sydney, I'd be really disappointed and really uncomfortable by the time I finished a 16-hour journey. Happy to give FlixBus the benefit of the doubt. These contract bus operations won't last forever, as they're only just starting out. So hopefully FlixBus make it a priority to operate all their own buses as a matter of urgency, so customers know exactly what they're going to get on board. In terms of punctuality, we left about 30 or 40 minutes late in the end. We arrived about 1.5 hours behind schedule, which wasn't really Flix's fault. The extra delays, as the traffic was extremely slow if we were going into a long weekend for savings. That may have explained why. So just factor in plenty of extra time when travelling between Brisbane and Byron Bay. 3 hours is an optimistic time frame. You really need good traffic for it to eventuate. Finally, in terms of value, this is one thing I can't really fault about FlixBus. Today's journey cost a grand total of $27.99 with a measly $1.19 selection fee, putting this journey at just under $30, which for the price I really can't complain in that regard. So overall, would I travel on Flix again? Most probably I would, but with a few distinct caveats. For short journeys such as this, most likely I would, as they do tend to offer the cheapest prices on the market. That being said, for longer overnight long distance bus journeys between the major capital cities, I'd be inclined to wait a few more months till I can be certain of be travelling on a Flix owned and operated bus which has the amenities and features you would expect for long distance bus travel. So overall, I really wish FlixBus all the best in expanding in the Australian market, as more competition is really good thing for the Australian consumer. Really just hope they make it a matter of urgency to get over the teething issues they appear to have when I travelled with them back in January of this year. And they do more to bolster their coach fleet, so consumers can be 100% sure they'll end up on a FlixBus. Otherwise, going forward, I'd still be inclined overall to continue travelling with Murray's or Greyhound. Anyway folks, that was my first ever coach review on FlixBus between Brisbane and Byron Bay. Really hope you have enjoyed the video, found it informative. I certainly enjoyed the ride and the beautiful scenery heading down to Byron Bay, even if the journey was quite frustrating itself. Anyway, if you have enjoyed this review, really appreciate it. If you could just give the video a like, leave your comments down below, smash that new hype button, and of course, share amongst your family and friends. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, put that bell notification button on as well if you haven't already, if you do enjoy the content. In the meantime, also visit my website aussiejetscenter.com.au for latest flight reviews, interesting news, destination guides, free fire hacks and more. Invite Discord server these days for fans and community of the channel to discuss all things aviation and travel. But as the sun sets here in iconic Byron Bay, thanks so much for watching today's review. But until next time, safe travels, wherever that might take you.